Okay, so apologies, this video was a little bit late coming. I was up all night and I want to get some rest before making this video. Also, if I sound a little bit raspy, I've got some mouth ulcers, very painful. It's a problem I've had my whole life, and it's exacerbated obviously when I overindulge in the caffeine. But it was necessary for last night's marathon political. Um, political, yeah. Um, so Donald Trump, President-elect of the United States. Um, this is not necessarily the outcome I wanted. I say not necessarily, and this is why, as opposed to not just outright I didn't want it. I'm not a Trump supporter. I disagree with him strongly on many of his positions. I don't see him on the gun issue, on some of the way he has went about his campaign, on many other things. There's also some areas I agree with him on. But what is clear is that he has a Democratic mandate. The way the American system works, everyone knows the electoral college votes are what gets someone into the White House. Now, Hillary Clinton, obviously, there is still some votes being counted, but the vast majority have been counted now, and it looks like Hillary actually won the popular vote, so that might give her some solace. I don't know. Um, and the latest figures are, I'm just going to try and get this up on my camera. The latest figures are Hillary has, excuse me a second, obviously this changes on the hour. Well, I'll start off with the electoral college votes. Yeah, here we go. So the latest I've seen from the Wikipedia article is Hillary's on 59,680,035, Trump 59,479,278. That's very narrow. That reminds me of Kennedy and Nixon in 1960. And the latest projected electoral votes is 306 for Trump, 232 for Clinton. So this isn't really a repeat of 2000. I thought I thought at one point when John Podesta came out, and I actually made a video about this. I'll probably still upload it simply for posterity reasons. I thought, okay, we're going to see a repeat of 2000, except instead of it being Florida, it's going to be Pennsylvania. I really thought that would happen. But then when it got to the point where Trump was veering towards that 270, I knew at that point there was about an hour that it was widely speculated he was going to be president, and of course it was official. Shortly after that, the writing came up at the headline writing came at the bottom of the screen. Clinton concedes to Trump. Um, the first noteworthy thing was his speech. It couldn't have been more different from much of the tone that he has been setting throughout this campaign. From throughout the primaries, throughout the main presidential election, so much of Trump's style has been combative and controversial. His victory speech was gracious, polite, conciliatory, and yes, presidential. Um, so that was certainly surprising. My own feeling is someone has spoken to him and said, "This is close, Mr. President, you've won, President-elect, but this has been close. You're inheriting a deeply divided country, so please, for the love of God, get a balance." And he done that. It was surprising that Hillary took quite a while to respond. I think that's because this has been a major upset. It is unconventional, but she wasn't sour grapes. She accepted it. She she made also a conciliatory speech and said that they need to come together, and again, very presidential. So I can't fault either of those speeches, except Trump's didn't sound like it was him making it at all. But if that is going to be the tone of his presidency, that is a good thing, and I agree with President Obama on that. Some just interesting side facts: Trump will be the oldest president ever. He now surpasses Ronald Reagan in that regard. He's probably the richest president ever, although it depends how you look at the sort of inflation and how you adjust the net wealth of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and John F. Kennedy. I think Trump probably still ranks above them, but they would certainly be in the higher scale of things. Um, and he is the first president never to have held either any sort of executive elected office or any military post. The last president to enter office without any political role was, of course, Eisenhower, but Eisenhower had been a major Allied commander, and he was the Allied commander. So this really is untested water. Um, I'm not going to make this video too long, um, so I'm not going to go into all my thoughts about what's generally happening in the Western world, not at least in this video. I think that's an interesting subject, and I think it would be for another video. Um, but I think Trump was right to say this is Brexit Mark II. Um, it's unfortunate that some Hillary supporters have decided to aggressively protest. Um, that's unfortunate. It doesn't help Hillary Clinton. It doesn't help their cause, and it just makes them look like petty losers. It's not good for democracy. Um, but on the subject of democracy, there will be some that use Trump's controversy, the fact that he is a controversial, divisive, populist candidate. They will use that to say this is why democracy is flawed. And in particular, it will be arrogant, totalitarian regimes. I've noticed a lot of Chinese nationalist mouthpieces are already saying, oh, well, this proves that our one party system is good. I will take a flawed democracy any day over a totalitarian system that on the surface seems to get everything right. But beneath the surface, you have no free press, you have dissent crushed. It's, give me a flawed democracy any day over that. I'm not overly depressed, actually. Because I do think that, firstly, the president doesn't have absolute power. So those who are fearing some sort of Trump dictatorship that's I think that's a bit of hyperbole. Not that some of his statements in the campaign have helped, but remember the president doesn't have absolute power. There's constitutional limits. There are people around him. And although both the House of Representatives and Senate are now controlled by Republicans, which helps Donald Trump, um, he will still have to answer to them, and there's many Republicans that are not comfortable with Mr. Trump. But this man has been democratically elected, and that has to be respected, and not just by Americans, by anyone in the world who really believes in democracy. In the last 24 hours, I've seen some pretty disgraceful things, quite frankly, against Trump. Um, and this is coming from people who should know better. People who normally wouldn't be extreme sort of people, but their hatred of Trump is such that they kind of think it's okay. I've seen posts advocating his assassination and stuff like this. That that is not. It's just not constructive. And I totally understand people being concerned or even angry, but there is a way to voice that. And certainly, the way to vacuum anger is not by just vandalism. And in one case, threatening people at a ballot box. There was some topless protesters were harassing voters at a ballot station, and that's just it's childish. But more importantly, it's fundamentally undemocratic. Um, so people need to accept the outcome. Certainly, I don't feel that comfortable with the fact that the system works through electoral college votes as opposed to the popular vote, because on the surface that would not appear particularly democratic. On the other hand, this is the system that is in place, and everyone knows that. The Democrats haven't tried to change it, nor have the Republicans. Um, from what I see, there hasn't sort of been a movement to have electoral reform in that sense. So they know that. So in that sense, no one can shout foul play. I guess for Clinton that could be a big solace. I mean, she won big states. She won California very comfortably. New York. I'd like to see what the results are in New York, but I haven't been able to see individual state results. Virginia. So it wasn't humiliating for her. But there was speculation Trump was going to get landslide. Well, he hasn't got landslide. And what I would amicably say to Trump supporters is, well, don't be too cocky and don't assume that, basically Mr. Trump is inheriting a deeply divided nation. And yes, he has been responsible for causing some of that. It is true that there have been far left factions behaving fairly disgracefully in recent months. I get that. But it is also irrefutable that Trump stirred up a lot of unrest in his early rallies. That's a fact. Um, this is a divisive person. At least up to this point, he has been. And I just hope the tone that he set in that victory speech is going to be more consistent with the tone he sets as president. So I'm encouraged by that. As for some of the things that he said he's going to do, well, on one hand, he's going to, he's told his supporters he's going to do that. So there's going to be pressure on him to do that. On the other hand, there's going to be bitter opposition to it, the wall and so on. So time will tell. I want Donald Trump to do well. Why? Because I I personally value the Anglo-American friendship and the Anglo-American relations. I don't want a weak United States. I don't want a weak American president. Does that mean I like everything that goes on in America? No, but I do have a lot of fondness for the United States, and some people are making it out like this is the fall of Western civilization. That's nonsense. I understand the disappointment, I really do, but what we're going to see is a peaceful transfer of power. Now, that doesn't happen in many parts of the world. It is interesting that markets plunged when the news was announced, but just complaining and saying how awful things are and so on, it's not productive. I'm not saying people should enthusiastically support Trump, but at the very least, like Hillary Clinton said, they should hope that he does well, because I think that is the right path for the United States, for any country. I would say the same for my country. I don't support the Conservative Party, but I will support Theresa May on such important issues like the Union of the United Kingdom. Incidentally, Theresa May got a very good balanced response. She didn't make the mistake of taking one side or the other. John Major done that in 1992 when he backed George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton won. So I'm going to round this up. There isn't a great deal more to say. Congratulations, Mr. Trump, and I just hope he is a productive president and he means what he said about reaching out to people. But by the same token, hardcore Hillary and Bernie supporters are going to have to realize A, he has a Democratic mandate, and B, simply yelling about how awful he is won't change a damn thing. If Donald Trump does push policies that people believe are destructive, they have a democratic right to protest peacefully against it and to petition their senators and so on. But violent protest is not the answer. So I hope Mr. Trump does well for the sake of America, for the sake of the world. And those who think this is a failure of democracy don't know what they're talking about. This is not a failure of democracy. It's an upset. It's a political earthquake. It is not a failure of democracy. It's democracy in action. That's what it is. So time will tell what happens. Um, I'm sure there'll be other things that can add to this, but I'll leave it there for now. Keep posted. I may well make another video about the. Incidentally, I knew things were turning. I guess everyone did when Florida and North Carolina and Ohio went for Trump, because no president in recent memory has won the White House without winning those states. So that's interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching. I didn't make this video, by the way, to get into long, lengthy debates about the merits of Donald Trump, but just to express how I feel about it. And once again, with my last video, it might seem a bit out of place, but bear in mind that was made before this news was announced. Okay, thank you for watching.